What is up, YouTube? Bobbles and Ball Cards back with another video. Got a fun one for you guys today. I know it's been about 2 weeks or so since I've done a video, but this one, I just thought it would be kind of interesting and fun to go through and look back on. Kind of take a time machine back a few years, just to break down like why this came about. Saturday, my wife, Mrs., she was cleaning up some stuff around her desk, and she had an old laptop bag, and it actually had an old work laptop, but it also had a laptop that I had owned, and I honestly had forgotten about this laptop because it hadn't been used in probably 4.5 years or more. And so we plugged it in, fired it up, was both curious, did we have pictures or whatever on there that we wanted to save? And looking back through it, I realized this was the laptop that this channel began on. Before I got my iMac set up and everything here, I was running everything off of a Dell G7 gaming laptop. And so it was kind of interesting and fun to see that. It was, the early SGC submissions, the documents and everything had been created on there. Videos were created on there. I used to use Adobe Premiere Pro, and I sucked at it. So if you watch earlier videos on the channel, they were edited using Adobe Premiere Pro, and they were not very good. Anyway, I did, though, find a folder that had some fun stuff in it. Now, I know it's small. I tried to zoom this in further, but I couldn't figure out how to get it any bigger. But you could see here, this says date modified, and it has 13 files here. All were done on March 9th, 2021, between 10:03 p.m. and 10:14 p.m. I'm going to go over to this view, and you can see here, Saturday, I moved them to a thumb drive so I could get them up here onto this computer and share this with you guys. So what this is 13 cards from the pandemic period, the boom, the craze, and I thought it would be fun because there's some stuff in here that I cannot believe sold for what it did. And a lot of content creators, if they were around during that time in the hobby, they kind of talk about this, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that didn't experience it. They weren't into cards. There's a lot of new people. The hobby has grown somewhat because of that period, and then the strength that carried on beyond it, the way that Fanatics has marketed sports cards to a wider audience and various things. So there might be some people that when people are talking about the boom or the pandemic period, they might be wondering what in the heck's going on. And then you talk about today's cards, and like we're saying that everything is still in a bubble, and or that it's back in a bubble, so to speak. And looking at this stuff and comparing it to now I don't dabble in a lot of the boxes and all that stuff anymore, and I only buy players or cards that I specifically want in my collection, which most times are relatively cheap. But I don't even think that some of the stuff today would compare to the way some of this stuff was. And reason I'm saying that is most all of this stuff was very, very, very easily obtained, and it wasn't expensive. So I'm going to take you through this, and then I do have some comps pulled up to show what these cards are worth today. I'll actually slide this over a little bit, and we'll try to go through it here pretty quickly. But this is a 2014 Topps Chrome Davante Adams Refractor Rookie, and it's in an SGC 9.5. Every card here is showing is going to be SGC because I had created these pictures and put the little sold data on there to share SGC solds, because during the boom, a lot of people were interested in SGC. PSA had that 12 million card backlog, and so it was driving a lot of interest towards SGC, and I was sharing kind of some of the things I was seeing that I was selling and that sort of thing. So here's the Davante Adams. I sold this. All of these are going to be 2021, but on February 17, 2021, I sold it for $129.99, and today I pull a comp up, and on September 8th, an SGC 9.5 of the same card sold for $15.51 on auction. So after grading and everything, you're going to lose money. So kind of interesting to see that. $130 back in the day, $15 today. Next is going to be an Allen Iverson. This is the NBA at 50. It has that silver foil on it. It was a 50th anniversary set. It is the Iverson rookie from 96-97. I sold this on January 31st of 2021 for $240. If you go over here and look at today, this is actually a PSA 9, which, you know, many argue that 9 versus 9, the PSA is going to bring more value. But September 4th, 2025, a PSA 9 sold for $47.60. So, you know, nearly a $200 price difference there. Next up, this is, I actually sold 3 of these. And this is what I was talking about. These cards were not hard to get. This was retail X-Fractors. They came out of the mega boxes. 2020 Topps Chrome, X-Fractor, Bo Bichette, SGC 10. I sold one on February 5th, one on the 19th, one on the 24th. $300 each. $900 for 3 Bo Bichette SGC 10 X-Fractors. Today, you would get $27 a piece. So 10 times less, over 10 times less each. So this today would have been $81 for the 3, and instead I got $900. So way different, but this is a massive example of how tides have turned and where things are today. And also, I want to just for a moment touch on, I'm noticing this more and more, and I think it's always been the case, and maybe it's just not ever been focused on, but people are so quick to jump on the newest guy, the newest rookie, the newest product. But really, you can go through many examples throughout time, and in most cases, if you give a player a few years, the prices are going to come down from what they were when they were initially released. We've talked about it. SGC had a huge advantage to have the first to market, right? People were using them simply to open product, get graded, get sold, and they could bring strong values because of the quick turnaround times. And that's all due to this hype, this nature of the rookie and the immediate sales and everything. But in most cases, I'm not going to say every case, but in most cases over time, the card value is going to trickle backwards. So, you know, in 2020, it was a different period, but Bo Bichette was a much more sought after player, obviously, than he is today. Even though the Toronto Blue Jays are doing great, him, Vladdy, they're great players. The team is doing awesome, but the values are nowhere near like what they were when they first came out. And you could go pre-pandemic on this, even to, you know, guys in 2016, 17, 18. Their values were going to be strong right in the beginning. So there's a few players from there that have held up. You know, obviously Ohtani, Juan Soto, his is actually kind of, it's not sustained, but it's still got a decent value. But in most cases, a player's value is going to drop. I've talked about it with my Jason Robertson stuff. I was buying as a collector. The delay in product releases kind of hurt me because people caught on to who he was. He was doing really good. But today, a lot of the stuff I bought, had I had just been patient and waited, I could have gotten it much cheaper today. Now, something like the Green PMG, that one I kind of had to pounce on because who knows if I would have ever seen one again. So there's moments where it makes sense to go ahead, especially as a collector, to buy. But then there's other places, like I haven't been buying any James Wood rookies because I just don't think that the values of him this year will sustain long term. I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong before about players, but it's just something that I've noticed and I've been trying to approach. Give it a few years. Let it settle down. Let the player settle down. Let a new guy take the spotlight and then come in and buy things that you would like. Unless, of course, again, it's something that you may not see pop up again and you really, really want it, then sure, go ahead and jump on it. But Bo Bichette, that's a big turnaround on that one. Next, we have a Kevin Durant. This is 0708 Fleer Rookie Sensations Durant. It is an SGC 10. I sold this January 22nd for $210. Today, this card in a PSA 10 on September 16th sold for $100. Now, all of these prices, if you're wondering where I was getting these from, they are from Terapeak or eBay Product Research, whatever you want to call it. But these are confirmed, verified sales and what they sold for. So that card in an SGC 10 sold for $210. Today, a PSA 10 will run you about $100. Next, we have a James Harden. This is 09-010 Upper Deck First Edition. This is the gold parallel. There's also a silver parallel. I put on here what I paid for the card and to have it graded. It cost me $38. On February 26th, I sold it for $325, and that was in an SGC 9.5. The Harden I brought up here. You can see September 8th and then August 6th. On August 6th, a PSA 10 sold for $132.50. A PSA 10 on September 8th sold for $113.50. And then on September 8th, a PSA 9 sold for $12.27. So even if I wanted to compare a SGC 9.5 to a PSA 10, it is about 3 times less today than it was in 2021. Massive difference. Next, we have a Allen Iverson. This is just the base. This is the 96-97 Skybox EX2000 rookie Allen Iverson base card. It is a 9.5. Now, these were tough to grade, but it's not a rare card at all. Not rare at all. SGC 9.5, I paid $33 for the card and to have it graded. I sold it on February 11th, 2021 for $850. Here is the today comp, and a PSA 9 on September 9th sold for $105.02. So massive difference. If you wanted to bump this up by 50% and say $150 because this is a 9.5, you're still $700 in the hole. So again, this is one of those cards. It's like, why? Why did it sell for so much? And these are things that I wanted to share because we could talk about like some of the record-breaking stuff, but this type of stuff was out there everywhere. You could buy this card every day of the week. It's not rare. And to buy it and to get it graded, it was under $40. It was $33, and you could flip that into $850 without even needing the 10. So it was crazy, crazy times. All right, next up is a Kobe. This is the 96-97 Bowman's Best in an SGC 9. It is a rookie. Sold on February 5th for $425. Today, a PSA 9 sold for $100 on September 20th. So 4 times less than what it was going for back then. Now, Kobe, obviously, a lot of his stuff exploded after the accident and all of that. But this was a year later after that, and his stuff was super duper cheap right before. Even if you could get into stuff right, when everything happened, it was still relatively cheap. It hadn't hit quite of a surge yet. But, you're looking at it here, an SGC 9, $425. And it was like this, it was almost a cheat code. It was hard to find a player that wasn't going to sell for a boatload more than what you were picking it up, especially if you got it pre-pandemic. Like when all this stuff started going crazy, if you had stuff already, it was hard to lose. And it was almost one of those situations, and I talked about letting myself get all over the place, It was a situation where I could have sat on all this stuff. I enjoy Kobe, Allen Iverson, Durant and Harden are great players. I could have sat on that stuff, but it was me taking paths all around. And like I said, before all of this happened, I had to reevaluate, where was it that I was having the most fun? This was craziness. This was, I mean, I can't say it wasn't fun because it was always this excitement. It was this positive build up, what was going to blow up next, everything. But overall, as a collector, the fun was building finding the pieces and curating things that I actually wanted in my collection. This was just chaos. So, could you say it was not fun? It was chaotic, sure. But yeah, just some wild times here. Next up is another Kobe. This is the Cyber Metal from 96-97, again in an SGC 9. February 10th, 2021, I sold this card for $424.99. Today, this one in an SGC 9 is sold on September 5th for $130. Next up, we have this. I actually still have one of these. This is an example of a card that I actually bought to keep. I don't want to say accidentally. I happened to have won 2 of them. They were on auction, and I placed bids on multiple. I think there was 3 up for auction. I placed bids on all of them. I ended up winning 2 of them. So you can see here, cost of grading on this particular one was $23. I sold it on February 9th. This is a 9. I also own a 9.5. I kept the 9.5. Sold it on February 9th for $499.99. Now this is one, again, I kept my 9.5, but right here, a 9 today on August 3rd sold for $133.73. So that was a situation where I bought this card to keep. I was a big Shaq fan. I thought it was an awesome image. They had won the title. He jumped up in Shaq's arms, the big hug and everything. The gold medallion looks really nice with not only just the Lakers colors, but the Pacers in the background there. And I just, I tucked one of them away, sold one. I look at the 9.5 as it cost me absolutely nothing because of the $366, or actually the $476 that I made off the card. So could I have sold the 9.5 and made probably over $500? Sure, I could have. But I kept it in my collection. It's one of those that, I enjoy the card. I enjoy owning the card. And so it's also an example of I didn't sell everything during the chaos. I did things like this. If I had duplicates, sell one, keep one, right? This one becomes free. Very free. So, all right, next up here is the Fleer Metal Base Rookie Kobe 9.5 on February 7th. It sold for $449.99. Today, that card in a PSA 9 it sold for $85 on September 21st. Again, huge change in price. Next up is, this one. This is a card that went absolutely apeshit, and it's still a popular card today. You can see here I paid $34 to buy the card and have it graded. On February 3rd, I sold it for $1,550 in an SGC 9. Not a 10. It's not a refractor. It was a 9 base 0809 Topps Chrome. The Kobe with LeBron guarding him. This card today, I actually tossed a PSA 10 in the pricing just to show. So PSA 9s, the last 2 sold on the 18th. They sold for $325 and $339. A PSA 10 sold for $1435. So you can see like the big, huge difference here. An SGC 9 did $1,550. Today, a PSA 9 is $325. So huge difference there on that one. Next we have, the last 2 are going to be Tatis, another player that blew up during the pandemic. This is the Chrome Update Base Rookie Debut in an SGC 10. And that one I sold for $149.99 on February 18th, 2021. Today, a PSA 10 of the same card on September 18th sold for $16.50. And then last up is going to be this one, which is the 2020 Topps Chrome, second year, the Rookie Cup X-Fractor in an SGC 10. It sold for $140 on February 24th. Again, second year cards started blowing up. We had the Luka, we had the Tatis, we had, like, it was all around. Second year cards. This one today, actually, I had to go all the way back to October 3rd, 2024 to find a sale of this to comp it. But it sold for $30. Now, I would assume that's even less now because that was nearly a year ago. But still, $110 less. So there's a walk down memory lane, folks. And I wish I could find more pictures and examples of this and compare. Also, if anybody wants to check the legitimacy to these numbers, you can't do it on Therapy because it only goes back 3 years, but I believe like Card Ladder and that kind of stuff goes back further. Be my guest to go through and check the dates, and you can see the little cert numbers and everything here, or the pictures, whatever. And go through and check. This isn't made up. These were back in 2021. Just how crazy things were. Now, again, there's also things like, obviously, if we were selling, we were buying, right? Most people in the hobby were doing that. They were taking money and buying other things. That's to say that a lot of the stuff that was bought back then also has dropped in value. But when you were selling second year Topps Chrome Tatises for $140, it makes that loss or that decrease in value of things you kept in your collection a little bit easier to take. And actually, I think a lot of my stuff has done pretty well holding. Some may have went up. The one that I think that stands out to me the most that I probably lost on was the 93 Jeter SP. I thought that card it was popular enough that what I bought it at, it was, at least sustain. And it took a nosedive down. I bought it at the wrong point when it was kind of hyped up a bit. And so I kind of missed the mark on that one. The key, especially back then, buying was to catch things either on its way up or before it started going up, or after you've seen, the chaos and you let it settle down a bit. That was the best strategies. But of course, you're not going to time everything. It's why, all these people that try to predict and tell you what cards are going to go up or what the future holds or this, that, and the other. Nobody knows the future. You can kind of use common sense, which isn't readily available anymore today, but you could kind of use, thoughts and what your feelings are towards the future to kind of allow yourself to, approach things in a manner that you're comfortable with. You might be right, you might be wrong, but at the end of the day, if you got things that you enjoy and that you like and that you're okay with, the price you paid, that's all that matters. So anyway, I just thought this would be a fun one. Hope you enjoyed. As always, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and until the next video, I'm out.